the Silly Squad Variety Show. Encore! Tell us another joke! So Lily the Frog kept going. She'd told 100 jokes so far, her confidence was growing. All the Silly Squad were there to enjoy this comedy aquatic. Bamboozle and Izzy, Merry and Snook, but Brian was in the attic. Then Cher and Shirley, the Funhouse Sheep, appeared to take the stage. They'd just read A Midsummer Night's Dream and remembered every page. Another hour followed of theatre comical and dramatic, but Brian missed Cher's bottom, 'cause he was in the attic. An interval for snacks and drinks. Izzy the Octopus showed her skill. She served ice cream with poetry while working on the till. With meticulous calculation, she was quite the act mathematic. She finished with some fireworks. Shame Brian was in the attic. Which of the squad would take the chance to open the second half? Then, with a swish of satin, on came a tall giraffe. Merry was in the spotlight, her yarns so charismatic. Everyone hung on her every word, while Brian was in the attic. Then Mo and Philbert the platypuses on tight ropes were a riot. They ate while going back and forth to prove a balanced diet. And though their highwire dining made the soup course problematic, they finished up to huge applause. But Brian was in the attic. Bamboozle the panda loves a trick and to tread the boards. He made Shirley the sheep disappear, then swallowed several swords. His magic act had showmanship, a style quite enigmatic, as Shirley the sheep reappeared next to Brian in the attic. Snook was last to give a turn, and to everyone's great pleasure, he gave out pirate costumes and they set off to find treasure. With cloths and sheets they shaped a ship for an adventure quite piratic. Then suddenly Brian the pony descended from the attic. He landed in from high above, a unicorn in flight. If only unicorns could fly, it would have looked all right. But let's move on, as Brian was there and he was quite emphatic. Will you all be quiet, please? I'm brooding in the attic. Arr, Brian said, then stomped away, and Snook looked out to sea. One day he'll make a fine pirate. Now, where'll that treasure be? Then later they all took their bows, on a high, ecstatic. Everyone has a silly bone, even Brian in the attic. Norman's notes. Brian's asked me to spy on the Silly Squad, so these are my notes from today. If found, return to Norman. Don't read, just look away. Are you reading this? How nosy. But then in my opinion, who am I to stop you? I'm just Brian the pony's minion. Seeing as you're here though, perhaps I can confide and tell you what it's like for me being on Brian's side. It can be quite eventful in weird and wonky ways. When Brian broke the laughometer, he partied hard for days. He galloped round for ages, and while he gave himself a blister, us pigeons got a takeaway, and then we all played Twister. But most of the time in Brian's camp, joy levels are abysmal. Brian's determined to bring things down and keep it dark and dismal. The only thing that keeps me from feeling quite forlorn is seeing how silly Brian looks dressed as a unicorn. I don't think Brian appreciates his silliness potential, and I must say, perhaps confess, silliness is essential. Like bread and milk and margarine. I'll have some silly, please. Just slip it in the basket between the eggs and cheese. Talking figuratively, I can't eat eggs. I care for Brian, we all do. But he needs to lose the tension. Take counselling or therapy. He needs an intervention. I'd love to see him read more books and open up his mind. Climb into a story and leave his stress behind. Travel with great heroes, a magical wand in hand. Fall down a rabbit hole with Alice to a wacky wonderland. Wander through the wardrobe, race Toad's motor car, sit upon a giant peach and wish upon a star. But, returning to reality, it's a shame I have to. Anyway, notes. Tuesday, 5th of August, in a series of haikus to make my work more interesting. 12:13 p.m. Merry the giraffe makes tea. cold on reaching face. 12:20 p.m. Lily tells all a new joke. 1 p.m. I laugh. I'm not on the ball. I'm taking notes for Brian and I'm distracted. 1:30 p.m. Bamboozle dons Bowie wig. Resemblance striking. 1:50 p.m. No one here, so read comic. Brian would be mad. Great story about evil horse with heart of gold. Leave on Brian's desk. 2:15 p.m. Snook reads cool sports annual, then does 5-star jumps. 2:30 p.m. Feel inspired by Snook to jump. Look ridiculous. 2:50 p.m. Izzy hangs the washing out. Takes her 5 seconds. 4:15 p.m. Snook puts on clothes, still pegged up. Extremely silly. 4:18 p.m. All of Silly Squad join in. Even sillier. Brian reads comic. Can't quite gauge his impression, but isn't in bin. 4:30 p.m. Brian rolls eyes. Then comic. Bops own head with it. Quite silly of him. Does he see the irony? Things are looking up. End of Norman notes for today.